Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rachel, and I am joining you today from the International Civil Society Centre's office in sunny Berlin, Germany. I'm the moderator for today's panel, and for the benefit of those who are blind or who have a visual impairment, all speakers will begin with a short self-description. So I will begin. I am wearing my new glasses. I'm wearing a black dress. I have shoulder-length dark hair with significant silver stripes in it and red lipstick. Today's panel is, as always, a series of discussions about us exploring civil society's perspectives on various emerging digital themes. We live in a world where data comes in all sorts of places and in many different formats. Information is absolutely everywhere. We have a huge access to huge amounts of information from various different sources. Today, our panel will be discussing how to protect people's privacy and keep that data safe, as well as exploring how could we possibly reuse this data that's already been captured and reuse it for good, to create positive change and to solve problems. At the International Civil Society Centre, we host a data-focused programme ourselves. It's called the Leave No One Behind Partnership. This promotes citizens and marginalised communities to produce and use data themselves to influence decision makers and raise awareness of their situation in order to drive change and improvements. The partnership's advocacy efforts over the last year have been very successful, and we've succeeded in getting the UN to take up the issue of citizen-generated data. There is now an officially endorsed UN framework for the production and use of citizen data. If you'd like to know more about this, you can visit voicescount.org to get some more information. The link will be in the chat. But for today, we'll be focusing more on data stewardship, and our aims for today's discussion is that we could explore the benefits of reusing data and how this could improve people's lives, and what is the meaning of data stewardship. We'll also be sharing examples of data reuse and data stewardship, as well as discussing different approaches to stewardship, so including challenges and opportunities, and what potential benefits there are for people, society, and the planet. To help us discuss these issues today, we are delighted to welcome to the panel Paulina Behluli, who's the Programme Manager at the non-profit The Data Tank. She leads a programme of training and boot camps for civil society organisations, as well as public and private sector, on data stewardship. The Data Tank have collaborated with us closely to bring you this digital dialogue today, so thank you, Data Tank. We're also delighted to have Nadine Levin, who is the Data Manager at UNOCHA. She's very new to this role and was previously at the Norwegian Refugee Council, and I believe that today lots of her examples and information will be sharing from her work at the Norwegian Refugee Council. Our last panelist today is Mahadia Tunga, who is the Executive Director at the Tanzania Data Lab. This is a non-profit which harnesses the potential of data to address sustainable development challenges. You'll see all the bios will be dropped into the chat. But for now, to start us off on the panel today, I will ask each panelist to introduce themselves and to frame the issue, and sharing the current landscape and their key points for around 5 minutes. Then, as always, we'll have time for discussion and questions. So please don't forget to post your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them later in the session. Paulina, would you please turn on your camera and join me on screen? Would you please introduce yourself, tell us a bit more about what data stewardship means and the work that you've been doing at the Data Tank, and don't forget to start with a brief description. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everyone. So I'm wearing a shirt with patterns. My hair is tied. I'm wearing some earrings, and I have a blue background. Again, hi, everyone, and a special thanks to the International Civil Society Center for hosting this, and to everyone here for joining from all over the world. Rachel already did a short description of me, so I'm Paulina Behluli. I am a data and digital governance specialist with experience in the open data landscape in Kosovo and the Western Balkans, and general data governance and policy across the EU. I am a program manager at the Data Tank in charge of the data stewardship program, but more specifically, the data stewards boot camps we are implementing across Europe and that I'll be talking about shortly. About the data tank, so driven by values such as transparency, inclusion, and collaboration, among others, we are a nonprofit think and do tank based in Brussels with a global reach. What we do is we help the society reuse data responsibly for the common good through research, through training, collaboration, and by creating safe spaces and institutions where data is reused responsibly. So you might be wondering what is and why data reuse. So on the what, data reuse is a concept where data that is collected for one purpose can be reused for another purpose to advance or further the common good. One example we're more frequently witnessing in the recent times is accessing satellite data, for example, for urban development or emergency responses. Now, on the why, we live in a fragmented and siloed data landscape with organizations across sectors really closing access to data that should be publicly available, like in open data formats, or it should be standardized and interoperable so that it is easily shared with groups whose main purpose is advancing the common good and voicing citizens' demands, such as the civil society sector. While there have been continued efforts to democratize access to data and transform the data landscape, such as institutional frameworks like data commons or data spaces in Europe, we still acknowledge the missing piece of the puzzle, which is building a human infrastructure that is geared towards enabling this access to data for reuse purposes. And that is also exactly where data stewardship as a function or data stewards as roles come in. Data stewardship can be manifested in different ways as a set of competencies, functions, or roles in organizations, as an intermediate organization, or as a set of principles. And to understand more, I'll share, after I finish my talking points, I'll share a recent publication by our co-founder on that specifically. But for today's focus and the time limitation, I will only focus on data stewards as a role or function in existing organizations. The way we redefine data stewardship, because this concept has existed and there's many organizations like Opti Institute or Ada Lovelace Institute that describe data stewardship, all and each in unique ways. How we redefine it on data stewards as roles, we see them as proactive agents who facilitate data access and collaboration, particularly across sectors, with that key goal of generating public value. This is why we really believe that data stewards should be embedded in both sides, so the demand side of the data and the supply side of the data. And collaboration and participation to unlock the value of data for these public initiatives is deeply rooted in our definition of data stewards. Having said that, at the Data Tank, we are organizing data stewards boot camps, courses across the world to train the future data stewards and to enable organizations to really think more carefully about A, understanding the questions and problems at hand first, defining the demand for data. B, brainstorming on ways how, if, or even why data can help solve the problem at hand and further this common good that we call. This is about understanding the supply of data. And C, tying it all together in a responsible data reuse strategy for individuals and organizations. So far, we have held 6 editions across the world, and the 7th one is upcoming in Switzerland, Europe. We have also managed to train more than 100 data stewards who are part of our active alumni group. Together with the alumni network, we organize engaging and dynamic events to really continuously keep up with this fast evolving trends of data and digital in general. I think that is enough with the bootcamp cheerleading from me, and I really look forward to hear from my fellow peers who are the real drivers of change in this space.
Thank you, Paulina. Now I would invite Nadine, thank you, to start with a self-description and give your opening points. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, I guess good evening too, depending on where you are in the world. So I am wearing a black long sleeve shirt and I have curly hair and pale skin. So my name is Nadine Levin. I'm based in Berlin, Germany. I work in humanitarian aid at organizations like Norwegian Refugee Council. But actually, my background is in for-profit tech. So I worked at companies like Amazon, where I was for 5 years, and other startups and other tech companies. At NRC, I led the development of our centralized data catalog, which was built on CCAN. For those of you who don't know CCAN, it's an open source data management framework. This data catalog that we developed at NRC was an internal only catalog. So that meant that it's only available to NRC staff, but it allowed us to push data programmatically through pipelines and also manually upload data sets. By having this centralized data catalog, from there we could create clean data dashboards through services like Power BI and also more easily access operational data that was previously very difficult for us to track down. Working in the humanitarian space, it's hard for us to calculate more simple operational metrics like number of staff or the types of projects that we have and in what countries. While I was at NRC, I also helped release a open source CCAN extension to the community that tracks API usage from CCAN. And that was also done in collaboration with the Open Knowledge Foundation. So yeah, like it was said, this is now my second week at my new role. I'm working at UNOCHA as a data manager, and I'm working on the humanitarian data exchange specifically. I'm very excited to join HDX. For those of you who know it, it's just recently had its 10-year anniversary. And we're really moving forward our mission of centralizing humanitarian data for general use. We also recently have released our 2025 State of Humanitarian Data report. I'll drop the link in the chat, but I recommend everyone to take a quick look at it. I gathered some interesting statistics too from it. So in 2024, HDX had 1.4 million unique users. There were over 20,000 data sets, 3.5 million data downloads, and over 200 active organizations. So for those of you who don't know, HDX is probably one of the most popular humanitarian data tools out there and really bringing data to the world. And I think in this report, it's quite interesting because it gives more indicator to where we think in 2025 and beyond, what is going to happen with the continued availability of humanitarian data, given the severe funding shortages in 2025 from USAID cuts and US foreign aid assistance overall. So last year, I joined the Data Stewards program that was run by the Data Lab in Berlin. That's where I met Paulina. It was an incredibly invaluable experience for me because I came from the for-profit sector, and this was my first role working in civil society, NGOs, and IGOs as well. And so we were tackling these huge problems that required a deep understanding of data and working, combining the supply and then also the demand of understanding the why. For me, I think the most valuable aspect of this data stewards program was the peer-to-peer learning. So I was able to build a network and community with others who had been working in data, sometimes for decades, and be able to understand what worked for them, what didn't work for them, and really tap into this sort of shared brain so we could apply frameworks across all of our works, regardless if it's in humanitarian or other types of civic society data. And from there, I understood more about the role of this data steward that Paulina was talking about. So really protecting, acting, and collaborating with the data. I think, just at a very high level, understanding this question-centric approach. So really understanding what is the question that we're seeking to answer with the data and the purpose of why do we need this data. And it was instrumental for me building our centralized data catalog at Norwegian Refugee Council, gathering the data that was actually needed by our colleagues in head office, but then also in the field, and making sure that we were gathering it for a need when we were heavily resource constrained. So yeah, I'll end there. I'm excited to talk more. And yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. I'd now invite Mahadia to turn on your screen, please, and to join us. Wonderful. Mahadia will give her opening comments, and please do remember to start with your brief self-description. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, the International Civil Society Center, for organizing this. My name is Mahadia Tunga from Tanzania, which is in East Africa. I am a female and a Black African, also wearing a black hijab today. Yeah, so that's about me. And yeah, so about my work, I work at the Tanzania Data Lab. I work as executive director, but I'm also a lecturer at the University of Dar es Salaam. And yeah, I'm also a founder of Tanzania Data Lab. Yeah, and Tanzania Data Lab basically is a center of excellence for data-driven innovation. And we are hosted at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. And for us, we are passionate about harnessing the power of data and the fourth industrial revolution to drive sustainable development in Africa. And our mission is to ensure that data is being used and reused from the grassroots to the decision maker level. So from the citizen community to private sector and government agencies. So that's the main mission of DLAB. And since at the inception, we have been working on data and digital space, and DLAB is the only organization that solely focuses in data in Tanzania. And we collaborate with government and institution, academia, as well as private sector in using data to solve pertinent challenges in Tanzania, but also in Africa. We have also worked in other countries like Congo. Currently, we'll launch our project in Lesotho, but also we have worked in Cairo and other countries and other parts of Africa. Yeah, and so our project basically range from supporting like the national digital strategies, advising on data and ICT policy, as well as building capacity on data and data use of citizen as well as of decision maker. But also we work in the inclusion space where we work on the challenge of including more women into the data space as data expert, but also those who are in decision-making roles using data as a tool to climb later into a decision-making role. Yeah, and why do we think that data is important and why we are working in this space? We believe data is invaluable resource, especially in low resource constrained settings like Africa. So we believe data serves as a backbone of evidence-based decision and making evidence-based decision making, also, enabling organization, government to identify a pertinent challenge and allocate resources efficiently, as well as monitoring progress. And also, we believe in reusing data in the same context of low resource setting, that we shouldn't be duplicating efforts. So if data is collected elsewhere, can be used in areas where it is needed. Yeah. Today, I will be talking on our role as data stewards in Tanzania as well as in Africa. Our role in supporting government, community, private sector in data use and reuse. Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I would now invite all three panelists to turn back on their videos. As always in our panels, this is where we move on to the next section where the panelists will discuss and ask each other questions to tease out interactions and intersections with their work. So I will leave the three of you. Mahadia, if you can turn on your video so we can see you, that would be wonderful. So we'll have a few minutes. Please, audience, do start thinking of your questions, pop them in the chat, and then after a few minutes, after the panelists have discussed, I will come back on and start asking your questions for you. Many thanks.
Mahadia, I had a question for you. So as you were talking about reusability, it reminded me a lot of why reusability is so important in humanitarian context as well. Because there are a lot of data sets out there, right? And in resource constrained environments, it's really helpful where you can use those existing ones rather than duplicating efforts. I was wondering if you had other specific use cases of this data reusability. And then also the role of data stewardship when it comes to the data that you've experienced in Tanzania.
Yeah, sure. And sorry, I keep switching on my camera, but it keeps switching off. So I think there's a technical issue on my side. Yeah, so on the issue of data use and reuse, yes, exactly. Uh, we work in a space where we want organization to be reusing the data, but also institutionalize the process in a sense that organization have friendly policy towards data reuse. So I will talk about one of our work for in engaging a civil society organization into the data reuse agenda. Where when oftentimes when you introduce the topics, especially to organizations that do research, one of the challenge will come from the researchers that if we share our data, other people will be publishing in the space and maybe have more publication, higher profile than ourselves. So we need to lock the data so that so that we can like reap the benefits. But then so we oftentimes bring in so that becomes a conversation, and so we say, okay, maybe how much time do you need to lock that data so that you can, if you want to do the publication, etc. So yeah, so then someone will say, I need 5 years, and then if it's 5 years, that means the data will no longer be of the same value. So now we try to like strike a balance in a sense that the data is, you allow the researchers to, for instance, share their data, lock the data for a certain period of time, but also that time shouldn't be that long, so that others could also benefit and the data could have value, and try to tell them that when you share resources, you might find that you are spending data collection times 6 months or a year. Maybe you could just spend a few months, 2 to 3 months, because you would have used other sets of data set from some other researcher elsewhere. So if each one will be like publishing their data, that's the benefit that the benefit that we will have. So in the same context as a data stewards is ensuring that the process is also institutionalized within the organization. We have friendly policies that support that. So recently we have been working with the Ministry of Agriculture, developing the National Digital Strategy. So under that, also part of it is acknowledging that data should be accessible, and also the government should be open towards citizen-generated data, reusing data from the private or civil society entity, which also collect a lot of data, acknowledging that data can be used as official statistics, etc. So yeah, we have been working in that spectrum. And I actually had a question for Paulina. You mentioned on the toolkit, as well as your role on as a data stewards. So I don't know if you are able to share what does that role of a data steward look like exactly in reality? Yeah, Paulina.
Yes, thank you, Mahadia, for the question. It's actually a question that we get a lot because when we're talking about data stewardship or data stewards as a role, we're in this theoretical lens where we're reimagining a profession, and people want use cases, right? People want concrete, tangible outputs that they can call upon and that can be more easily digestible. In the civil society, one initiative that I would highlight, except for the work that Nadine has done with the Norwegian Refugee Council, which is also something that I'm going to ask after Nadine. I would like to highlight a project that will go live soon in May that is coordinated and organized by a foundation active in Germany that is called Bertelsmann Stiftung. Stiftung in German means foundation. Bertelsmann Stiftung is also the funder of our boot camps that we held in Berlin. Around May, if I'm not mistaken, they will launch this civil society data atlas. So what this will entail, this will be an atlas, like a catalog, which doesn't necessarily only focus on data discoverability. So they're going to partner with many civil society organizations that operate in Germany who will share their data, and their data will be made accessible and more easily discoverable via this atlas. But their approach to also having funded us, and in the meantime, us trying to upskill the capacities of data stewards, is an approach or is a step forward towards embedding these roles in the civil society. And what a data steward would do in a civil society organization, besides from preparing the data internally for their impact measurement reports or the data that their DI or their ESG departments hold, they would also prepare the data to be standardized in a manner that could be shared with other organizations, and they can access or they can request access to data from other organizations as well. So the role of the data steward in a civil society context is very much data policy based, with a strong focus and foundation on building partnerships. And these partnerships could start off with data specific partnerships that could then roll out into long-term sustainable partnerships. And I think it's also worth mentioning that we are living in times where it feels like democratic backsliding. So this is also a moment where us as nonprofit groups, as civil society organizations, should really unite together and use data as a tool, as a power to make these changes and to resist, really. And to resist while taking into account the demands, the needs of citizens, and to voice those in the correct ways and channels. And yes, so I also highlighted earlier that I would ask another question to Nadine. She already shared a bit about the CCAN extension, the data portal that the Norwegian Refugee Council did. But yeah, I would like to learn more, and probably many of us in the audience too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy to share. And also, if anyone has any other questions, if you're building a centralized data catalog, feel free to reach out to me. I think it's been just such a treat working in open source technology because everyone has been so friendly. Again, that shared brain, I've really talked to so many other organizations that have used similar technology or gone down a similar path. And so we were really able to work together. to build something quite quickly. So yeah, Norwegian Refugee Council, we're active in about 40 countries worldwide. So this ranges from anywhere in Central America to Africa to Ukraine, where I was actually end of last year. We also work in a wide variety of different types of projects. So this can be WASH, shelter, food, protection from violence. We're operating in crisis zones. So we move very quickly and we have to help the people that we're serving in rapid and a safe way. So I'm sure you can imagine all the different teams and geos are operating in very siloed environments. Even within NRC, we had different teams like our HR team or our finance team, our monitoring, evaluation, and learning team. They're all using different tools. And so it led to a problem of this lack of source of truth. And so again, the framework that really was solidified with the data stewards was working backwards from this problem or this issue that we're trying to solve. And so that was what we attempted to solve with the CCAN data portal. We wanted to get operational data available to colleagues that needed it for various aspects of their work. And we were able to co-design with different stakeholders that were internal to build features even that really mattered for them. So that was like the CCAN API extension that I mentioned earlier, but then also really leaning further into using dashboards and visualizations. And so, yeah, those are some high level use cases. But we are also able to get administrative boundaries or geographical data sets available in the dashboard. So colleagues, you know, for example, yeah, in Ukraine, in the field, they're able to know exactly the oblast or the counties or the regions in which that they're trying to get aid. And these are, data sets that are changing rapidly in the environment that we work in. And so having a centralized place where they're able to go and refer to this and know that this is, you know, today, this is the geographical area that we're working in. It really helped standardize our approach. It helped make sure that our organization was able to get on the same page.
Wonderful, thank you. I'll now start our next section of bringing in questions from the audience. When people registered, we actually had quite a few questions that were posed before in the registration. So I'm going to start by asking a question that came in via the registration forms from someone at Demos, Angelia. I don't know if you're here now, but they asked, could the panel please give us more details on the implications for democracy? How could it be used to, how could data be used to improve this democratic engagement? Paulina's nodding. Would you like to attempt to answer that question first?
Yes, thank you, Rachel. I mentioned a bit earlier how I feel about our democracies. Yeah, I think data, on one hand, data and other technologies like data that is fed into these AI systems or machine learning or large language models, it can be misused, definitely, and we have to address that and we have to regulate that by different groups. But at the same time, it also has the potential to really change the world and to provide a platform or a means of a lot of audiences to engage with decision makers. Like one way could be through citizen assemblies or e-participation platforms that really enable citizens to be closer to the decision makers. I think that way, if we're using data responsibly and if we're thinking of means to put that data into practice, it could really serve as a voice for a lot of us. And in terms of different communities or citizen-generated data, I think that's also really important to first be protected, and for the communities to be consulted in a timely manner whenever they want to, for example, reuse that data. So to go beyond these binary GDPR regulations that kind of limit us sometimes as users, but to think of more a concept that we're also working on at the data tank is called the social license, which is a sort of an agreement, a community agreement, if their data is being shared for decision-making purposes, for evidence-based decisions, then they have the agency, they have the digital self-determination, the principle to decide about their data as well, how it's being used. And then this is also a way of empowering citizens and giving them a voice, which used to be the foundations of democracies.
Wonderful, thank you. We've had quite a few questions come in that are speaking a bit about privacy. One question that came through from Mek in Zimbabwe is, how can we ensure that data speaks to the right holders as implements in our project? How can we ensure that we are using it correctly? Mahadia, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, sure. Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
I can give you the full. It felt quite a lot of questions. There's sort of 3 questions in one, so I can read you the whole thing. How can we ensure data speaks to the right holders as implements of our project? How can the same data inform future programming and strategies? And then a third one: how can governments be encouraged to use the data properly in data barometers? There was a lot in there, so I will leave it to your discretion to answer.
Sure. Yeah, so data, I think data use concept start from the point of of data collection. Why do you want to acquire that particular data? So for that data to be meaningful and impactful, you should start with why question. Why do you need to collect that data? And by that, that means you'll also define who are your target audience, and also target need. The purpose. And that helps that the data that you're collecting will be able to solve a particular purpose, because there are a lot of situations where data is being collected, but when comes to the use time, you realize that there is this parameter was not collected, that one was not is not available. Should we go back to collect data? Should we estimate? Should we use a secondary source, etc., and something like that? So at the point of data collection, start first to figure out where is it going to be used, in what platform, etc. And similarly, when you are analyzing and packaging it for use, also envisioning of a target audience of the platform in terms of their skill set, in terms of their profile, etc., so that you are producing a data that can be consumed by your target audience, because there are issues of language, terms that are going to be used, types of visualization or types of interpretation that you will need to focus. All that depends on your target audience and should be at the point where even at the point that you're analyzing, you need to figure out that and the issue of a data privacy, before responding to that, I'll just share. So we had a program with Data Tank. So the Next Gen Data Project. And so we invited the decision maker from different organizations. And to our surprise, so most of them were not even aware, in Tanzania, we have Data Protection Act. and some of them were aware that there is a data protection, but they did not know the implication. They were collecting data. They did not know if you are collecting data, you need to be registered. They did not know that the association of fines if you share data with personal information. So all this that like they were not aware of. So I think the issue of data protection. So start with first with our awareness. So what are we protecting? How should the data be packaged? Who should have access to that data, and so forth. So also the issue of awareness is also from the data collector perspective. And when we talk about reuse and what will that imply? So yeah, so maybe I can stop there.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my next question to Nadine. We've had a couple through, so I'm going to try and synergize a couple of these questions. So we've had one question that came through saying, what first steps could CSOs take? I think some people on the call, this is a new idea to them. They're maybe not from massive, huge INGOs. And then there was another one that came through about, what are your recommendations for users to quickly understand the vast sources of open source data available and the lists of different stewards? So if you have any top tips, Nadine, that would be great.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's so many tools and sources out there for open source technology. I think you really need to start from what is the issue that you're trying to solve. So I'm a big fan of pros and cons list or matrix of trying to identify the different products that you're, I guess, looking into or trying to validate. And so you need to understand what are the things that are really important for you. So what are the features? For us, we needed a lot of flexibility. So in order to actually get data into our catalog, we wanted to be able to, manually upload an Excel file. We also wanted to be able to have the flexibility of having data engineers create Python pipelines where they could push data. So that already narrowed down the search for us with the open source tools that we were looking at. And then from there, there's so many other things of you understanding the business problem or the organizational problem that you're trying to solve. I also, really strongly recommend to just look online. There's so many different resources out there. The CCAN community in particular has been really fantastic. There are CCAN monthly talks where you can join and learn more about how others are using the same type of technology in different ways. And I think for me, that was a really great way to get inspired and really learn about other applications that maybe I wasn't even thinking about. So yeah, I would definitely start from there. I think when I joined at NRC, I spent weeks just reaching out to various other organizations and seeing, ones that were even larger than NRC that had much more resources. And seeing what worked for them and what didn't work for them, building off of what they have already experienced. So yeah, I would recommend that.
Paulina, I'm going to ask you the next question that's come in from Selene on the chat. Do you see cultural differences in the way people model data? And if yes, how can the role of data stewardship standardize in an inclusive way the data modeling practices when coordinating a global data initiative? In brackets, would like to avoid always favoring a European perspective.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks, Solène, for the question. I think you raised a really important issue. So there could be a global data initiatives, but at the same time, there are also local and grassroots data initiatives that can feed into those global practices. And if it features this bottom-up approach, so to say, where the practices are first taken, or the data that's collected is first taken from local communities, from city level data that could then be fed into practices on global, then data data modeling practices would be easier to capture all the differences and all the varieties that different cultures bring in this diverse global world that we're living. And actually, as part of our bootcamp materials, we don't necessarily tackle let's say, initiatives on, for example, a global citizens assembly that was discussed also in the Paris AI Action Summit. But we definitely talk about data collaboratives, which is a model of data collaboration where data modeling, where metadata tagging is also part of it, of course. And these data collaboratives are really sort of collaborative initiatives where different data providers and data accessors or people that need to access the data are part of this structure. And then together, they are supposed to work on different modeling, tagging, and labeling of data that really is representative. And that is why the way these data collaboratives should be set up should also include this representative factor. And that is one way how we could see this translating into some global practices, because starting with a global initiative, it's always difficult then to capture all the beauties that the world has to offer. So I hope that addressed your question, but happy to continue the conversation after as well.
We've had a few quite quick, simple questions that I'm gonna ask. So Nadine, there's one for you on the chat, which you can maybe reply to in chat about how can you join the CCAN monthly talks. Paulina, somebody has asked, are these data steward camps available virtually?
Yes, so the Data Stewards boot camps, depending on who we're collaborating with, where are we going, we decide on different formats. So we offer hybrid boot camps, we offer full in-person intensive boot camps, and also fully online. These are the three models that we offer. I also shared a link earlier for the upcoming one. If you go up the chat a bit, I can reshare it again if it's difficult, so you can see. You can learn more about the structure, because they're really interactive and dynamic in nature. They're not just lectures in a course, but they're also field visits, and there's also other guest lecturers. So we try to include everyone, basically.
Thank you. Mahadia, I have hopefully a very quick and straightforward question from for you, which actually comes from one of our partners from the Leave No One Behind Partnerships. That's Annie. Hello, Annie, who's in India. She was asking, would the panelists consider citizen-generated data, where the affected people generate the data, to be robust and acceptable by the data community? So Mahadia, would you like to answer for the group for that one?
So sorry, could you repeat? I think I did not hear the last one. Can you just repeat?
So would you consider citizen-generated data, where affected people have generated the data, would you consider this to be robust and acceptable within your community?
Yeah, so there's a lot of debates regarding the citizen-generated data, but for me, for the data from whichever source that it comes in, I think how the data was collected, if the process is transparent in terms of like the methodologies, etc., and that will build trust in whether that data can be reusable or can be usable or not. And this is not just for citizen generated data, even for the government as well. But in our context, we are actually pushing towards citizen generated data to be acknowledged by the government. We are not there yet, but we are in that move, like joining forces as civil society organization. But in terms of whether that data can be used, so it totally depends on how the data was collected and if that is transparency, so that someone can make a decision whether to use it or not. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. We're drawing to an end now. There's one question that I'd like everybody to answer in a kind of final summary, and someone has asked, could the panelists name the one most important lesson that they've learned in their experience regarding data use and privacy protection. So this is a quick round to give final thoughts on that question. Nadine, would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think this is a really, really important question. I think when you're working in data and tech in general, there is a lot of focus on how to do something and not so much on if or why you should be doing something. And I think having these types of conversations and these types of programs are incredibly important. As someone who comes from the FANG or Silicon Valley tech world, I don't think we have a lot of these conversations with the actual developers who are building, the infrastructure or more advanced AI or machine learning models. So I think the limitations for data, you should really focus about confidentiality, sensitivity from everything from gathering the data to storing it to sharing it. Always trying to make sure that there is no personally identifiable information in that. If there is, there needs to be a very strong use case. I think when we're working in NGOs or IGOs, the people that we're working with are in very vulnerable positions and their data matters so much. It's a right that they have, just like any one of us. And so I think when we're building and talking about these tools, when we're looking at numbers, there are people behind that. And trying to humanize and make sure that we're treating it with the utmost respect.
Thank you. Mahadia, would you like to give your short answer to the question?
Yeah, a very short one. So for me, don't begin with assumptions, begin with people. So yeah, advocating for like human-centered digital future, where you begin with people, people's needs, people's interests. Yeah.
Should I go, Rachel? Yes, thank you. Yeah, I also agree with what the fellow panelists said, definitely. And even though we are the data tank and we seem like to really advocate for accessing data for reuse, when we're talking about data, we're never talking about sensitive, personalized data. And even in such cases, for example, in healthcare, it really needs to be very sensitively dealt with strict procedures and regulations on really anonymizing the data, only in exception cases. And even though yeah, as I said, we work with data, we really have this motto or mission of starting with the questions first, starting with a problem first, and assessing whether data can be an answer to your problem. And then we also develop further, also in our boot camps, the concept of minimum viable data. You don't need to collect massive amounts of data to answer one specific question. And in order to make this siloed landscape more efficient and more complete, it's really important to start with the question science, prioritize what the project at hand is, see the art of possible. Do you need an AI solution? Do you need data to answer that? And then dig into the data work and continue to solve that issue with the help of these tools.
Wonderful, thank you. Sadly, that's all we've got time for. What I've heard today is that data is crucial, it's very important. Safety and privacy is crucial, and we need to be asking all of the questions. Do we need it? How do we use it? How can we use this correctly? Reusing data to unlock the value and to not duplicate is what I've heard very strongly, as well as a big shout out to peer learning support and open source of doing that shared brain. I like that concept and how we should lean into that more. So now it just leaves me to thank everybody. So I get to thank the speakers, Paulina, Nadine, Mahadia. Thank you so much for being such wonderful panelists and giving interesting thoughts and good insights into this new topic for some of us. I'd like to thank our sign language interpreters and our captioners. And I'd also like to thank you for joining and taking time out of your busy schedules to engage and to learn and listen about data stewardship and the importance of that. All of our digital dialogues are available on demand, and you can view them on our website. We'll be emailing out a recording of this in the next week or so. Next time on Digital Dialogues, we will be addressing the impact of the shifting geopolitical landscape on sustainable financing of digital projects. So we're taking a bit of a left turn, looking more at the finance. So please do join us register via the link in chat as always. Thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.